Good evening, you're watching Breaking Today News right here on Switch TV. I am Lincoln Wambugo, sign language interpreter is Teresia Washira. We have a lot in line for you tonight, but first, let's take a look at the headlines.
The honorable thing that if you are not happy with it, that you would actually,
No retreat, no surrender.
I am a man on a mission. I have no space to retreat, and I don't have the luxury to surrender.
Declares Deputy President William Ruto a day after President Kenyatta dared him to resign from government. 4 IEBC nominees appear before the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee for approval hearings.
Most of the patients came presenting with diarrhea and vomiting, and they were dehydrated.
One person dies as 38 others are hospitalized after consuming uninspected meat in Kericho County.
Glad you're watching. Well, 30 minutes of the broadcast begins now. Hours after President Uhuru Kenyatta dared his deputy to resign, Deputy President William Ruto has clapped back with a clear message that he is a man on a mission with no luxury to surrender. While speaking at a burial ceremony in Taita Taveta County, the DP has hit out at BBI proponents, saying the BBI was the most dangerous project in Kenyan history. Our senior political reporter Joel Chacha with more.
I have an agenda that I was elected on, and that work must continue. And it would be really the honorable thing that if you are not happy with it, that you would actually, step aside and allow those who want to move on, and then take your agenda to the people, which is what happens in any normal, democracy, because you can't.
A day after President Uhuru Kenyatta broke his silence on the long-speculated and strained relation with his deputy William Ruto, the DP has declared its no retreat, no surrender.
And for those who have a problem, I want to ask them for forgiveness. And I want to tell them, I am a man on a mission. I have no space to retreat, and I don't have the luxury to surrender. I am a man on a mission to ensure that the jobless, those who are running small businesses, the many farmers who are struggling, they too become part of our nation, and that Kenya cannot be a preserve for leaders and what they want and what they can get.
Can't on the one hand say I'm not going, and because at the same time I don't agree. You've got to decide, because you must be principled in that endeavor.
Deputy President allies have also castigated the remarks by President Kenyatta.
So the Kenyan citizens are the bosses. So anybody who feel that he is not comfortable working with the bosses between the two should actually resign, because they were conjoined twins, and it is the electorate who are the bosses.
Mwananchi peke yake ndiye anaweza kuuliza wewe ujiuzuru, lakini sio mtu ambaye tumepea kazi venye tumekupea wewe.
With the president having expressed his discontentment on the BBI ruling at the appellate court, the DP in a quick rejoinder says the BBI was the most dangerous amendment yet to the Constitution.
If there was a much more dangerous constitutional change, it is the BBI.
The DP was attending the burial ceremonies of Maho MCA Ronan Hanel in Taita Taveta County, and that of Sadam Gala Nyawa, mother to Governor Salim Mvurya, in Kinango constituency, Kwale County. Deputy President William Ruto insists he won't resign from the government he helped to form, as he rubbishes claims of being disrespectful to his boss. Joel Chacha, Switch TV, Parliament Buildings, Nairobi.
Joel Churchill, thank you. The country is again set to lose billions of shillings to the Building Bridges Initiative hearing should the BBI proponents proceed to file an appeal to challenge the appellate court's verdict. And as Robert Ouma reports, the Common Mwananchi stands the risk of bearing the burden. Take a look.
80 billion is an equivalent of 4,000 kilometers of low-volume tarmac road. Hiyo ndio watu wametumia kwa ujinga tu. Hiyo lazima mtarudisha. Mungu pesa haiwezi potea.
It has been approximately 3 years of swash and backwash over the constitutional amendment bill proposed by the proponents President Uhuru Kenyatta and his handshake partner Raila Odinga. On 13th May 2021, the High Court of Kenya handed down a landmark judgment striking down the Building Bridges Initiative, a set of proposed amendments to Kenya's constitution on grounds of violation of the constitution's basic structure.
That just start preparing how you'll repay the taxpayer money. Because corruption is misuse of taxpayers' money. If you misuse taxpayers' money in an illegal and unconstitutional document that the court declared null and void.
Currently, the overall cost of running a National Assembly stands at 18.5 billion. Further, it costs 3.6 billion to run the Senate. Elsewhere, the BBI was approximated to cost 20 billion annually. Further, to challenge the High Court verdict that had cost billions of taxpayers' fund, the proponents headed to the appellate court. The hearing that was conducted by a 7-judge bench, and according to High Court advocates, an approximated amount of 500 million was lost during the hearing.
Pale katika mahakama ya rufaa ilikuwa na mawakili kama 10 ambao walikuwa wanasaidiana nao, lakini na kuna wengine hata hawakuwa kotini. Kwa hivyo ni kama alikuwa na mawakili kati ya 20 na 30. Kila mmoja akipewa hata kama ni milioni 20. Kwa hivyo tunaongelea bajeti ya hawa ambayo ni kama unatumia karibu nusu bilioni.
The on and off game surrounding the BBI appeal does not seem to end anytime soon. And what does this mean to Common Mwananchi at a time when the country is still battling pandemic after pandemic?
It is openly... It shows that maybe this country we are not ready for it. We are not ready for it.
If a public officer causes a loss of money, then they shall be liable whether they are in office or not.
The Attorney General is now set to head to the Supreme Court to challenge the decision of the Court of Appeal, which will again cost the local Mwananchi, and fears are rising from both sides of political and constitutional elites of much to be lost if the Attorney General proceed to the Apex Court. Robert Ouma, Switch TV, Nairobi.
Thank you, Robert Ouma. Meanwhile, the 4 IEBC nominees, namely Juliana Chirera, Francis Muthenge, Irene Cherop Masit, and Justice Abonyo Nyangaya, are now one step away from being appointed to serve as members of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission. The 4 are today vetted by the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, as Mariam Jahid reports.
Juliana Wihonge Chirera, Francis Muthenge Wanderi, Irene Cherop Masit, and Abonyo Nyangaya have appeared before the National Assembly Justice and Legal Affairs Committee for approval hearings before the committee present the report to Parliament of Kenya. Juliana Chirera, who was the first to appear after having passed the nomination stage, has welcomed the move to incorporate Huduma number when voting during elections.
For the Huduma number to be used as the voter's card, yes, to make work easy. Once you are registered and you have your Huduma number, yes, I'm looking forward to that time that we can just use that.
The second nominee, Francis Muthenge, on the other hand, questions the budget of IEBC on general elections, terming it as unnecessarily expensive.
We need to analyze where is our election expensive. Is it the printing of the ballots that is very expensive? Is it the ballot paper? It has security features. We are told several security features. As much as we protect the integrity of the election, is it by making that election expensive? Probably that is not the way.
The third candidate, Irene Cherop, has suggested that a time frame is put on when campaigns should start and for how long they should run to protect the economy being affected by campaigns that start immediately the elections are over. The last nominee, Justice Nyangaya, who was bombarded with questions about his traveling habits, defended himself.
And I listened to the Speaker of the National Assembly say, why can't the Commission come back and tell us that they have the deficit and convince us? and we will find money for them to handle an effective election in 2022. I feel that this is something that I will bring.
IEBC image was dented after the Supreme Court casted doubt on the IEBC competence in the last general elections. If the 4 nominees will be approved by the Parliament and be the new commissioners of IEBC, they will have an uphill task of restoring the trust of the commission, having in mind that some politicians have gone on record calling for chairman of IEBC Wafula Chebukati to resign. Mariam Jahid, Switch TV.
Thank you, Mariam Jahid. Elsewhere, 1 person has died while 38 others have been hospitalized in Soliat Ward, Kericho County after consuming uninspected meat. Sabina Sambu, a medic at the Kericho County Hospital, said the patients were admitted to the hospital complaining of vomiting, fever and diarrhea. They all indicated that they fell ill immediately after consuming meat from a goat one of them had slaughtered and sold to them at a throwaway price over the weekend. Though most of the patients had since been treated and discharged, 2 adults and a minor were still recuperating at the health facility. Dr. Jane Toom, the Kericho County Hospital Deputy Medical Superintendent, has warned against consuming uninspected meat since it could be carrying zoonotic diseases.
In Ward 5, and we have 1 boy in casualty. The rest of the patients were very stable and they were fit to be discharged.
What I'd like to maybe encourage the public is that it is wise to have meat to be inspected. Let the public health officer and the veterinary inspect the meat before it is consumed. Because as you can see, it has caused a lot of problems, and if intervention was not done early, maybe we'd have had even a higher mortality. So I'd like to advise the public in future, if you have an animal, a cow, even a chicken can still kill. If you have a sick poultry, try to get the veterinary before you consume to advise you on whether to dispose or you're able to take. Then on the public, try and buy meat from a licensed butchery. From there, you are assured of the quality and inspection of the meat.
Indeed, cheap is expensive. That story from Kericho County takes us to a short commercial break. Stay tuned, we'll be back with more. Welcome back and thank you for keeping it Switch TV. Ever known that there is a Witchcraft Act in the Kenyan Constitution? Did you know that unlike other professions, lawyers are not allowed to advertise their services on billboards? Our reporter Brian Mwende speaks to Alex Cherongis, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, who shares some less popular things about Kenya's legal practice. Take a look.
So now today we are here with Wakili talking about the most interesting things about the practice of law and the profession of being a lawyer. So Wakili, thank you very much for making time for us. Kindly tell us what are some of the most interesting things in the profession of law?
There is addressing and addressing the court in the legal profession. There's addressing the court is whereby a counsel is not required to leave the court without the permission of either the judicial officer, that is a magistrate, or a judge. That is only provided if the counsel is the only remaining counsel in court. Then addressing the court, this is in terms of priority of addressing the court. Ordinarily, if there is a senior counsel before the court, he is entitled to address the court first. And the matter can be his matter can be handled first in priority of the others. In any other circumstances where we've got the Attorney General in that matter appearing in person, then it is the Attorney General to address the court first. The idea of a senior advocate and a junior advocate is based on the date of admission of the advocate. It's not based on the age.
So, Wakili, how do I attain the level of being senior counsel?
A senior counsel is attained by the reputation within the legal profession. The reputation is based on the matters that the counsel has handled in the legal professions, maybe touching to the interests of this country or issues affecting this country, maybe constitutional issues that this country has benefited at large.
So now, how do you market your skill and also your profession, what you've done to the world?
Marketing in the legal profession is prohibited. One of the grounds that you don't see advocates marketing in the billboards, TV and radio is to advance the noble professions. There are only few circumstances where we are allowed to do marketing. And that is, if you are to do a marketing, one is you do it maximum 4 times in a newspaper.
We hear there is something we call the Witchcraft Act. What is it?
One of the archaic law is Witchcraft Act, Cap 77 laws of Kenya. This is a law that has been in existence during the time of colonial. And if you look at the historical basis of this act, it was meant for colonizers to punish the Africans, because Africans were presumed to be witches. If you look at that act, there are 2 things that are very interesting. One is it doesn't define what is witchcraft, and that we find it difficult to enforce that law. We don't know what is witchcraft. The second interesting thing is it talks about non-natural. If we talk about non-natural, that means in a spiritual realm. The question that we need to ask ourselves, do we have advocates or judicial officers who can interpret this in a spiritual realm and enforce them in a spiritual realm? So it becomes difficult for us to enforce such a law.
Now we are well informed about the most interesting things about the legal profession and practicing law in Kenya. My name is Brian Mwende.
Thank you, Brian Mwende. President Uhuru Kenyatta was among the 10 African heads of state and government at the inauguration of Zambia's new president, Hakainde Hichilema. Hakainde, who has been sworn in as the 7th president in his inaugural speech, said his government will give equal opportunity to all Zambians and ensure all enjoy their freedoms as entrenched in their constitution. Other leaders of the ceremony included Kenya's former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, Infrastructure Cabinet Secretary James Macharia, Presidents Hage Geingob of Namibia, Filipe Nyusi of Mozambique, and Emerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe.
I stand before you today, humbled and filled with gratitude for your trust in a simple village boy who, you have made the 7th President of the Republic of Zambia. Our administration will ensure that sanity returns to all our places, all our communities. The days of government workers being retired in national interest for political or unfair grounds are over. Completely over.
Thousands of people in South Africa's Western Cape province have started flocking to the West Coast National Park to catch a glimpse of dazzling wildflowers that are in full blossom. At the end of South Africa's winter, a sea of flowers brightens the country's west coast, providing tourists with picturesque views. An array of wildflowers of many different species put on an impressive show, creating a spectacular natural carpet of brilliant rainbow colors. Apollo James with more.
After years of drought in the Western Cape, conservationists are optimistic that the high rainfall of the past year promises a spectacular flower season throughout the months of August and September.
Vary from year to year, so the flowers respond according to the rains and how much rain we get and how much sun and so forth, the elements basically. So the flowers are very beautiful this year. They came out a bit later than we anticipated, but as we can see now that actually the flowers are coming out very beautiful and very lush. There's no patches in between, they're all solid together.
We were anticipating that they would come into full bloom late August, early September, but the surprise is that they're in full bloom already mid-August. So it's really an excellent time for people to visit the national park now and view the flowers.
Flower enthusiasts came from far and wide to catch a glimpse of the annual floral display, a unique experience which only happens for a few weeks every year.
We've seen a great influx of different species of flowers that have bloomed. This is because we've had exceptionally good winter rains, and also the wind has been far less this year around this time than what it has in previous years, which has allowed the flowers to bloom in all their splendor that they've got at this present moment in time.
They were amazed by the colorful sea of flowers.
Time I was here was about 8 years ago. It was beautiful, but I think this year they say it's going to be fantastic.
Flowers are the most beautiful flowers I've seen in a long time, and every day it's a different kaleidoscope of colors.
After all the flower season ends in a few weeks' time, visitors to the park will still be able to enjoy its rich biodiversity and picturesque views all year round. Apollo James, Switch TV.
Now from the business desk. In recent months, the cost of living has increased in the country due to the ripple effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and an increase in consumption of exported products. Stakeholders in the manufacturing sector are now calling for government partnerships with the private sector to spur locally made products.
Kenya has experienced a sharp increase in the cost of basic consumer commodities, a factor that has been fueled by the effects of the pandemic and low purchasing power.
Gharama ya maisha imepanda kwa sababu tumekuwa na janga la corona ambalo limeathiri importations ama bidhaa ambazo zinatoka nje kama China, na huwa tunapata bidhaa mingi sana kutoka nchi za nje.
According to Samuel Karanja, the Chief Executive of Medium and Small Enterprises Alliance of Kenya, there's a need for the government to partner with private sector to enhance growth of locally made products.
Kufanikisha kufanya biashara. Kwa hivyo hatuwezi fanya peke yetu, lazima tukue na hiyo partnership ama mkataba ambao serikali na sisi wapigadau ambao wako hapa tuweze kuja na mipangilio ambayo inaweza zalisha uchumi wetu na inaweza shikilia watu wale wako huko chini.
Manufacturing was one of the pillars of the Big Four agenda by President Uhuru Kenyatta. However, with less than a year remaining before the end of his tenure, the sector continues to face challenges in terms of high cost of production.
Huwezi imarisha uchumi wa nchi na kuleta bidhaa kutoka nje, ni kuimarisha the manufacturing industry hapa nchini. Na zile policies ama vile mpangilio wa policies ambazo wanastahili kuimarisha ni kuwezesha watu wale wanazalisha ama wanatengeneza vitu hapa nchini ikuwe rahisi, kwa sababu ushuru imekuwa juu sana. Stima pia, bei ya stima imekuwa juu sana. Cost of production ama uzalishaji inakuwa juu sana.
Kenyans will have to carry the burden of high cost of living as the pandemic continues to cripple the country's economy.
Thank you, Florilla McKee. The chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, Opiyo Wandayi, has said that it is impossible to establish ownership of properties. Wandayi is now asking the National Treasury to formulate policies that will keep in check all the government assets.
Make more attention on budget making than what we've so far done, and making sure that proper resource provision for the Office of the Auditor General and the Office of the Controller budget.
So there we feel as a country, and we have been cited by institutions like the World Bank and the IMF to actually have been doing fairly well. But I do agree we still have room, save for situations like that of COVID, to be able to improve our revenue and do much better to support the development agenda.
Meanwhile, the Kenya Copyright Board has revoked the licenses of Kenya Association of Music Producers, Performance Rights Society of Kenya and the Music Copyright Society of Kenya MCSK for failure to meet their licensing conditions. These follows show cause letters issued to the three collective management organizations for non-compliance to licensing conditions, specifically breach of administration cost limit and diversion of royalties into an undeclared account, which operations are not monitored by the board. Our reporter Ron Mwenda has more.
In a statement, the Kenya Copyright Board Kekobo Chief Executive Director Edward Sigei has said that the revocation of the three collective management organizations follows showcase letters issued to the CMOs for non-compliance. Specific conditions not adhered to are breach of administrative cost limits and diversion of royalties into an undeclared account whose operations are not monitored by the board. The board has also noted in a meeting held on August 11th that the CMOs distributed 41 million shillings, that is 35.9% instead of 79 million shillings, that's 70% from the 114 million shillings collected at the end of July 2021. The board clarified that the distribution excludes money received and expensed into other accounts out of the Kekobo's monitoring system. Following the revocation, the collection of royalties has been suspended for 3 months or until further advised. The board has further reiterated its commitment to work with the relevant ministries to reform the CMO's legal structure. This is aimed at preventing recurrence of the misuse of funds by CMOs. Brian Mwenda, Switch TV.
Now it's time to go sporty. The Tokyo Paralympics are currently underway with COVID-19 cases rising in Japan.